Chapter 4. My adventures begin. As we made our way to the palace, I began to feel that I really was the king of Ruritania, with Marshal Strackentz, the head of the army, on my right, and old Sapt on my left. I could see that Strelsau was really two towns, the old town and the new town. The people of the old town, who were poor, wanted Duke Michael to be their king. But the people of the new town wanted King Rudolph. We went through the new town first, and it was bright and colourful, with the ladies' dresses and the red roses of the Elfbergs. The people shouted loudly for their king as we passed through the streets. But when we came to the old town, the Marshal and Sapt moved nearer to my horse, and I could see that they were afraid for me. "Stay back," I called. "I'll show my people that I'm not afraid of them." Some of the crowd were pleased when they heard this, but most of them watched me in silence. Finally, we reached the great church of Strelsau. I remember very little of the coronation, only two faces. One was a beautiful girl with wonderful red hair, the Princess Flavia. The other was the face of a man with black hair and dark, deep eyes, Black Michael. When he saw me, his face turned white. Clearly, he was surprised and deeply unhappy to see me. The coronation seemed to last for hours, but I managed to say and do all the right things. At last, it was over, and I was now the king of Ruritania. As Princess Flavia and I drove back to the palace in an open car, one man in the crowd called out, "When's the wedding?" The princess's face went a little pink when she heard this. After a while, she said, "You seem different today, Rudolph. Quieter and more serious. Are you going to become a more sensible person now?" The princess, I realized, did not think very highly of the king. As for me, I thought the king was a very lucky man. "If that will please you, I'll try to do it," I said softly. The princess's face went pink again. Then she said, "You must be careful of Michael. You know—" "I know," I said, "that he wants what I have, and also what I hope to have one day." As I spoke, I looked at her, and she smiled at me prettily. I wonder what the king's doing now, I thought. The royal dinner went on for a long time, but at last Fritz, Sapt, and I were alone in the king's dressing room. "You did well," Fritz said, "but Rassendyll, be careful. Black Michael looked blacker than ever today, because you and the princess had so much to say to each other." "She's very beautiful," I replied. "Come on," Sapt cried. "There's no time for that now. We must leave for Zenda at once to find the king. If we're caught, we'll all be killed. Black Michael has had a letter from Zenda, so perhaps he knows already. Don't unlock the door, Fritz, while we're away, or you'll be a dead man. Say the king must be left alone to rest. Now, come on. The horses are ready." Fritz and I shook hands. Then I covered my red hair and most of my face. Sapt and I left the room by a secret door, and we found ourselves outside, at the back of the palace gardens. A man was waiting there with 2 horses. Soon, we left the town behind us, and we were out in the country. We rode like the wind, and by 10 o'clock had come to the edge of the forest of Zenda. Suddenly, Sapt stopped. "Listen," he said quietly. "Horses behind us. Quick, get down. The castle's to the left," he continued. "Our road's to the right." We hid in the thick trees, and we waited and watched. The men came nearer. It was Black Michael and another man. When they came to the 2 roads, they stopped. "Which way?" the Duke asked. "To the castle," the other man cried. "They'll know there what's been happening." The Duke waited for a moment. "To Zenda, then," he cried finally. And the 2 men took the road to the left. We waited for 10 more minutes, and then we hurried on. When we arrived at the house in the forest, we ran to the underground rooms. The one where Sapt had locked up the old woman was empty. She had escaped. The other room was locked. Sapt's face was white with fear. Between us, we broke down the door and ran in. I found a light and looked round the room. The servant Joseph was on the floor, dead. I held up the light and looked in every corner of the room. "The king isn't here," I said. Chapter 5. His Majesty returns to Strelsau. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. For a few minutes we said nothing. Then Sapt cried, "The Duke's men have taken the king prisoner." "Then we must get back and wake everyone in Strelsau," I cried. "We must catch Black Michael before he kills the king." "Who knows where the king is now?" Sapt answered. Then suddenly he began to laugh. "But we've given Black Michael a problem," he said. "Yes, my boy. We'll go back to Strelsau. The king will be in his palace in Strelsau again tomorrow." "No!" I cried. "Yes," Sapt answered. "It's the only way to help him. Go back and take his place for him." "But the Duke knows." "Yes, but he can't speak, can he? What can he say? This man isn't the king because I've taken the real king prisoner and murdered his servant? Can he say that?" "But people will soon realize I'm not the real king," I said. "Perhaps, perhaps not," said Sapt. "But we must have a king in Strelsau, or Michael will ride in tomorrow as the new king. Listen, boy, if you don't go back to Strelsau, they'll kill the king. And if you do go back, they can't kill the king, because if they kill him, how can they ever say that you're not the real king? "Don't you see?" he cried. "It's a dangerous game, but it gives us a chance of winning." It was a wild, hopeless plan, but I was young. I would never have the chance of an adventure like this again. "Sapt, I'll try it," I said. "Good for you," Sapt cried. "But we must hurry. Look." He pulled me over to the door. The moon was low now, and there was not much light. But I could just see a small group of men on horses. They were Black Michael's men, probably coming to take the dead body of Joseph away. "We can't let them go without doing something," I said, thinking of poor Joseph. "Right," Sapt agreed. We ran out of the back of the house and quickly got onto our horses. Silently, we waited in the darkness. And then we galloped round the house and straight into the group of men. Between us, we killed 3 of them. But a bullet hit my finger and it began to bleed. We rode hard all night, and it was about 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning when we reached Strelsau. Luckily, the streets were still empty. We arrived at the palace, went in, and got to the dressing room. When we opened the door, Fritz was asleep, but he woke immediately. When he saw me, he fell to the ground and cried, "Thank God, Your Majesty! You're safe!" "Well done, boy!" Sapt shouted. "We'll do it!" Fritz stood up. He looked at me. Up and down, down and up. Then he took a step backwards. "Where's the king?" he cried. "Be quiet," Sapt warned him. "Someone will hear." Fritz's face was white now. "Is the king dead?" he asked quietly. "Please God, no," I answered. "But Black Michael has him." The next day was a long one for me. Sapt talked to me for 3 hours about what I must do and what I must say, what I liked and what I didn't like. Then I had to do some of the king's business, but because of my damaged finger, I did not have to write my name on any papers. When at last I was alone with Sapt and Fritz, we began to talk about Black Michael. Fritz told me that Black Michael had 6 very dangerous men among his servants. 3 Ruritanians, a Belgian, a Frenchman, and an Englishman. They did anything that the Duke ordered and did not stop at murder. 3 of them, the foreigners, Fritz had heard, were in Strelsau now with Duke Michael. Sapt banged the table with his hand in excitement. "Then the king must be alive. Michael's brought the foreigners with him and left the 3 Ruritanians to hold the king prisoner. Usually, the 6, as they're called, go everywhere with him." Fritz wanted to do something immediately about Black Michael and his men, but Sapt and I realized that we could not do anything openly. "We'll play a waiting game and let Michael make the first move," I said. And so I continued as King of Ruritania. In order to help the real king, I tried to make myself popular with the people. I went riding through the streets, smiling and talking to everybody. I also went to visit the Princess Flavia. The king's officials had told me that the princess was very popular, and the people hoped that she would become my wife. It was easy for me to pretend to be in love with the princess. Too easy. Those beautiful eyes and that lovely smile were stealing my heart. Here was my greatest danger. I was pretending to be another man, but losing my own heart. On my first visit, we sat together for a long time, talking of this and that. When I got up to leave, Princess Flavia said, "Rudolph, you will be careful, won't you? You have enemies, as I'm sure you know. And your life is very important to Ruritania." "Only to Ruritania?" I asked softly. "And to your loving cousin," she answered quietly. I could not speak. I took her hand in mine. Then, with a heavy heart, I left. Of course, I made many mistakes in my new life as king. But I managed to talk my way out of them, with luck and with help from Fritz and Sapt. It was like living on a knife edge. Once, I met my brother Michael in the princess's house. We smiled and talked politely, but I could see the anger in his black eyes. Chapter 6. An Adventure with a Tea Table. One day, Sapt brought me some news. He had found out where the king was. Duke Michael was holding him prisoner somewhere in the castle of Zenda. Sapt also brought me a letter. It was in a woman's handwriting. "To know what you most wish to know," the letter began, "meet me tonight in the garden of the big house in New Avenue. Come at midnight and come alone." There was another note on the back of the letter. "Ask yourself which woman does not want Black Michael to marry the princess. A. de M." "Antoinette de Mauban," I cried. "She wants to marry the Duke." "That's true," Sapt said. "But you won't go, of course. They'll kill you. Duke Michael made her write this letter." "I must," I replied. "Every day we play this game, there's more danger. I could make a mistake at any time. And if I do, we'll all die. Don't you see? I have to go tonight. We can't go on much longer." "Then I'm coming too," said Sapt. So, at 11:30 that night, Sapt and I rode out to the house in New Avenue. We left Fritz to watch my room in the palace. The night was dark, so I took a lamp. I also had my revolver and a knife. We soon reached the house and came to a gate in the wall. I got off my horse. "I'll wait here," said Sapt. "If I hear anything, I'll—" "Stay where you are," I answered quickly. "It's the king's only chance. They mustn't kill you too." "You're right," said Sapt. "Good luck." Silently, I opened the gate and went into the garden. In front of me, I could see the dark shape of a summer house, and I moved towards it. Without a sound, I went up the steps, pushed open the door, and went in. A woman hurried over to me and took me by the hand. I turned my lamp on her. She was beautiful. "Close the door," she said. "We must be quick Mr. Rassendyll, Michael made me write the letter. 3 men are coming to kill you. 3 of the 6. They'll tell everyone that Sapt and Fritz von Tarlenheim murdered you. Then Michael will make himself king and marry the princess. Antoinette's beautiful eyes were sad as she added softly, I can't let him marry her. I love him. But the king, I said. I know he's in the castle of Zenda, but where? Go across the drawbridge, and you come to a heavy door. Listen, what's that? They're coming. They're too soon. Put out your lamp, she cried, her eyes filled with fear. Quickly, you must go. There's a ladder at the end of the garden, against the wall. But it was too late. The 3 men were already outside. There was a small hole in the door, and I put my eye to it. My hand was on my revolver. It was no good. There were 3 of them. I could kill one, perhaps, but then a voice came from outside. Mr. Rassendyll? It was the Englishman. We only want to talk to you. Open the door. We can talk through the door, I replied. I looked through the hole again and saw that they were on the top step. When I opened the door, they would run at me. We'll let you go if you leave the country, and we'll give you 50,000 English pounds, continued Detchard, the Englishman. Give me a minute to think, I answered. Wildly, I looked around the summer house and saw a metal garden table and some chairs. I picked up the table and held it in front of me by the legs. Then I went to the back of the room and waited. All right, I agree, I called. Open the door. I heard them arguing with each other, and then Detchard said to the Belgian, Why, Bersenin, are you afraid of one man? A second later, the door opened. De Gotet, the Frenchman, was with the other 2, and the 3 men were standing there with their revolvers ready. With a shout, I ran at them as hard as I could. They tried to shoot me, but the bullets hit the table. The next second, the table knocked them to the ground, and we all fell on top of each other. Quickly, I picked myself up and ran for my life through the trees. I could hear them coming after me. Was Antoinette right? Was there really a ladder by the wall? I reached the end of the garden. The ladder was there. In a minute, I was up it and over the wall. Sapt was waiting with the horses, and seconds later, we were on our way home. And as we rode, we laughed, because I had fought Duke Michael's dangerous men with a tea table.